SFJ 4x4 Studios presents
in my oversized four-wheel drive Jeeps.
a Jeep podcast starring industry experts.
Pure monosity.
What? Say that again.
With mad scientist Scott Brown,
Use my drill press as a sort of lathe.
our host Neil Simpson,
If one light goes out, they all go out.
filled with shenanigans.
We are really professional with Jeeps.
This is I Speak Jeep.
Good. Oh, I wasn't ready.
No.
I went.
Well, you
and
were
then
ready, but
I
your
was
throat
ready,
wasn't ready.
But the body, right? The spirit was willing, but the
Yes.
flesh was weak.
Yes.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever, however you are joining us. This is episode 60 of the I Speak Jeep podcast presented by SFJ4x4.com, Simpson Family Jeeps of Conneaut, Ohio.
Chuck's already staring you down. He just sent in a message with eyeballs.
Hey, well, I about near. You know what? I'm so excited about our guest today that I was choked up, is what it comes down to.
Oh, I just wish that we were recording a few minutes ago when you tripped over the stool trying to sit down.
And I smashed my hand, and
I just realized we don't have the most important thing for Ryan to be on. We don't have a box of tissues
Oh, my
Oh,
God.
man.
That was
We'll
a
have to-
fail.
Speaking of, Ryan's already chiming in the comments saying good morning. And
Ryan is commenting to us
from the
off-
green room.
From the green room, right?
Yes.
From Literally,
Also
he's sitting
known as
next
his
to his
Jeep.
Jeep, right?
And
No
then-
doubt.
And then
No
Colleen
doubt.
is saying good morning.
Good morning, Colleen.
Good
we
morning.
we have a lot of for folks who are joining us both on our live, and if you have chosen to download this and listen to it in your ear holes, we thank you so incredibly very much. I have to mention that we launched our Patreon, right? And so arguably I want to make sure that I identify we had we're gonna pull Chuck in because he got first on it.
Yeah.
And so those of you, I actually had somebody comment, they had an opportunity to jump on the live feed, and again, that is every Monday at 10:19 a.m. You can jump on the live and communicate. And this person said to me, it was so fun being on the live because they got to actually see like the interaction with everybody and the comments going. And, he hears Chuck and some other names of people, right, who oftentimes jump on and prioritize being part of our morning session.
Our regulars.
Right. And he goes, it was so fun being like, getting to watch the comments
This
happen.
is the people they're
Well,
talking about.
And
And the fun thing is, we don't read all of the comments. We read most of them.
There's a lot of
There's a
comments.
lot of comments, and sometimes there's some side conversation that starts happening within the comment section. It's almost like its own community.
Yes.
I tend to just stay out of those ones and let them go and chit chat.
Yeah.
But speaking of, Dave Ammerman is saying morning, guys.
good morning, Dave and company, listening to us in your office this morning. Always appreciate that.
Yep.
And then Chuck also is asking, who's gelling today? So
Gelling like Magellan, that was in reference to Scott and his adrenaline. That was a short video that's running the internets right now. And so just like I want to say, I got off just a hair. If you are listening to us, you too can
hair
jump
in your
in.
throat.
Stop it. You too can jump in and be part of the conversation on the live on Facebook. And we appreciate that. Also, our Patreon group has special extra little things, behind the scene videos and that. So we did launch that this past week, and so those of you who jumped on and participated in that, we sincerely appreciate you. Now, back to your regularly scheduled broadcast. My name is Neil of Simpson Family Jeeps, and I am joined today with my lovely little hairy in the face.
Oh,
and he's letting his beard grow out. I'm not sure what's going on.
I haven't got to that. Been busy.
Been busy. Traditional hot rod builder and mechanic extraordinaire, and then our producer as well, who will introduce himself.
Mad scientist Scott Brown.
There you go.
And today I was installing shift plates for the third time.
oh no.
That seems to be your life, folks. If you didn't know, you could follow Scott on 1936 Ford
Ford
Crazy
Crazy.
on
Yep.
Insta, and obviously Scott Brown on Facebook. he has been piece by piece restoring in a traditional manner his 1936 Ford Hot Rod.
Yep.
Because despite the fact that this is the I Speak Jeep podcast, it is for you, the DIYer, people who want to try new things, learn new skills, go on great adventures.
Yep.
And that is ultimately what we are on at this point. Yes, we have some cool, over-the-top, gnarly Jeeps ourselves and this intimate knowledge, but ultimately
We're just car people.
we're just car people. We're just DIYers. And you can follow Scott and you can see him make and remake pieces of metal 101 times.
I'm this close to having, about almost there of having all the rust in the body fixed. So it's kind of funny. Where I started was a driver's side wheel well when I didn't own any machinery for sheet metal, didn't have even snips. And whacking on it with a rubber hammer on my cushion on my chair
Nice.
to make that, and now I'm on the opposite side. I've gone all the way around the car.
Yes. And I loved one of your most recent posts was about this year of learning these skills,
Yep.
right?
Crazy.
Before we jump, I do have something I wanted to mention that Jeffrey didn't get to introduce himself, so
yes.
our producer,
I am the producer, Jeff Shermani. As
the
you,
Italian
Italian
I was gonna say,
stallion,
as you love to say, the Italian
and
stallion.
if
Yes.
you wonder where that come from, you go on the internet, try to find that picture.
Amen to that.
Davey did a great job photoshopping me out to a horse.
Oh, it's Photoshop, totally.
Totally.
The
And his
dance
classic-
move. The dance move was photoshopped,
The
of course.
da-
Yeah.
I was going to say, Jeff was worried about the horse.
Mm.
I think we know that that's photoshopped. I would be trying to tell people the dance move was photoshopped. That's what I would have been trying to say.
That's
from
a
the
skill
get-go.
Davey is working on. I don't think he could do the dance move Photoshop yet, but I'm sure with his skills building, he'll be able to do that
When
soon.
he
my
can, he
goodness.
needs to.
Oh, I'm scared.
That's
very
spectacular. And if you're with us to this point, it is important to note that the owner of #NotARestoration, which obviously is a year-plus long restoration, is here and going to be joining us on set shortly.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if you're encountering us for the first or second time, the storyline goes in the first couple consults. Again, for a bigger project, that's typically what we'll do. We'll consult with you a couple different times before we actually, pull the trigger and get going. In the first couple consults, we kept, doing a phone consult with this guy, and he would awkwardly get to a point in the conversation, and he would be
and
like,
yell across the
and
room.
yell, but it's not a restoration. And of course, we're on the phone. And quite frankly, I mean, I'm just like, all right, this dude's a weirdo, but that's okay. I mean, I'm here for the weirdos. And
Well,
eventually,
then we found out the backstory.
eventually,
Now you can share all the details because his wife is also on here.
Oh,
goodness.
goodness.
Danger, Ryan, danger.
Eventually, we found out that he and his wife both work from home, and that
Well, this was the
ultimately
height of that kind of
this
stuff.
was the
so-
height of the pandemic, right? And ultimately, that he was, trying to ensure
Yes.
or reassure his wife
Yes.
that they were not going to make a grievous financial mistake, which obviously.
I gotta fill you guys in on some comments quick.
Oh,
First
boy.
of all, Joe Barilla chimes in, "Weirdos unite,"
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then Ryan chimes in, "Cut the broadcast."
Yes. And anybody who knows about restoring or investing in a vehicle knows it is not a
It's not a fast or cheap process.
no, not at all. So and here
sometimes
we
the
are
Jeep tells you things you don't want to hear.
all the time. That vehicle will dictate the process.
Always. But it's important to note that Julie's fully on board at this point. So.
She is, and she's done some very nice stuff. So
Yes.
and if you're joining us because you see us trending online, we thank you for that, and you can find lots of videos about this particular build and
Chuck-
other inside jokes and fun about it.
Chuck is actually saying, "Lawsuit was filed, divorce is imminent."
Ah,
But honestly, they're both really good customers, and Julie's been a great support to Ryan
yeah.
throughout this whole process.
no
so
doubt.
Yep.
We'll probably talk a little bit about some of the things that she's done for him in this process.
I think so. So we were circling back to our own personal projects. We always like to, again, just kind of make ourselves relevant to the process, despite the fact that It might not always be Jeep related. It is often DIY or that rugged individualism that unites us. You were posting again about your year-long journey in metalworking, the skills that you've built, acquired, the tools that you've acquired.
Yep.
I was just wanted to say I was really proud of you. That's a very cool thing. And most recently, you posted probably what I felt was the most, and you might differ, but I'm interested to get your opinion. The most complex or compound piece of metal that I feel like I've seen you make to date. That piece that actually was the floor patch. It had about 2 or 3 different bends to it.
Which one?
Which one?
Oh boy!
I mean, this thing moved like an S. It looked like a serpent, and I feel like it was part of the body or the top of the subframe itself.
Oh, are you talking about like a most recent update?
Yeah, just this
Yeah.
weekend, like
So
last night.
That's the sub rail.
So, yeah, it's the top of the subrail, is it?
Yeah. So what people don't know, how Ford built their bodies in the 30s, they had like this little frame rail on top of a frame rail, sort of, and they called it a sub rail, and it went from the front of the cowl of the car all the way to about the rear wheel. And this is just something they've always done back to T's and Model A's. So we're talking in the teens.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically the structure that the car is built onto.
Interesting.
Back on the earlier cars, they literally unbolt. You can take them apart panel by panel, and you build them on the sub rails as the frame of the body.
Sure.
And just for old time's sake, because I guess they still did that on my car. Mine is very integrated into the car, though.
Interesting.
And those sub rails don't really exist in the aftermarket. So you are literally on your own, or you try to make slightly newer ones that are similar to it work. And on the driver's side, I had to make that whole piece from scratch. And that was kind of my first in the vise, beating it with a hammer that was inappropriate for metalworking. Stepping into it, and it actually came out to where I was happy. I probably would not be happy with it now, but it came out good then. And luckily on the passenger side, it was a lot less damage to it. So it's as close as I can get it to being factory, even though I'm literally putting sheet metal on top
You're
of it.
literally right, and
never
I think
see
that's both.
That's because I'm crazy.
In today's hashtag not sponsored review, and obviously this update that you put right on your social media. The concept of the term that we use here is the devil's in the details.
Yep.
And so that's kind of a great talking point, because I saw that update and I go, that is literally the top of basically a frame rail or a unibody rail that nobody is ever going to see. Like, let that sink in, that Scott spent entirely more time and energy on.
And I metalworked it. I literally
did.
dressed the well.
The thing, you dressed it. It's beautiful. It looks like a serpent, swimming through a body of water. Is this piece of metal that literally is going to get covered up in a couple different sheets of metal from the wheel well out and then from the body down. And nobody will ever see it. And yet,
you might be talking about the floor piece too. That was the same.
I think it was the floor piece.
That's the edge of the floor. It literally gets sandwiched between the sub rail and the outer sheet metal.
Yes,
literally, we'll never see that.
Yeah, that's the specific piece that I.
And
was,
that comes down to the finite details that Scott cares about.
Exactly.
Literally, details matter.
Yeah,
and that's a core principle.
I know
of
it's
us.
in there.
Yeah,
and you guys do if you follow along.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so on other news, I'll keep my updates brief, just because I want to have maximum amount of time with Ryan. And so what I'll say is we made, again, huge thank you to all of our customers and friends who have been helping me along this house building journey. And again, a continued shout out to Jason and his, just his efforts nearly every single week coming up and helping me build on this.
You make him a plaque.
Not tiny house, tiny house. Yeah, right. And, what it's going to come down to, and I'll just share this piece. I using the multi-tool to cut off the excess foam, because that's what everybody has
If you didn't hear last
identified.
week, he used a lot of foam.
I used a lot of window foam.
Way more than
I'm
is
being
advised by
thorough.
any industry
being
expert
thorough.
for carpentry.
Yes.
Being thorough is what I'd like to think.
Yes.
And
It's
I
all about
cut
the
off
learning
this
curve.
piece. I cut off this piece that I promise is about 32 inches long
Oh my.
and about 3 to 6 inches, depending on what bulbous
boy.
part. I cut it off in one full swath.
Isn't the multi-tool awesome?
The
multi-tool is spectacular.
I thought we were exaggerating on the 15 cans per window, but I'm starting to question this.
I'm just saying, I cut it off and I thought, I'm going to bring it in. I thought, no, because then our listeners, right? And so really
Yeah.
the objective here is
We
the
could
ability
describe it.
to describe, right? As much as the shock and awe of the visual is, but if you can kind of just picture, a girthy baseball bat
Yes.
is what I'm cutting off,
Oh,
and that's
boy.
just one side of the window.
Right.
Um,
Is it great stuff or right stuff or how?
it is.
Great stuff.
I mean,
It's a windowsill version of it.
It's
yeah.
the window specific
If you're listening,
version.
Neil needs your help. He needs your sponsorship. Obviously, he's put great debt into your
I
products.
have utilized your products extensively.
Yes.
And I just want
Maybe
you
a
to know all
coupon
of the
would be nice.
windows, all of the windows, fully functional doors, everything is fully functional.
Mhm.
I have great. It is not the
now.
old
Structure
hard.
won't move. Remember?
Oh, it's true.
There is. There's so much wood in this little space. It's hard to say where we're going to put insulation. So, it was a very busy weekend.
When your supports are your insulation, you know you have too many.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's about the journey.
The king studs, yes, the 9 inches
9
thick
inches.
of king stud there. Per
we
per
overbuild
support.
stuff here.
We do, we do, right? And I'm trying to build a set of stairs right now, and Jason's trying to get me to use,
Normal stuff.
no, he wants to keep going with the
Oh.
theme. And
You're
I'm like,
you're starting to be like maybe
I was like,
we need
maybe
to
this is a
change
little too thick.
a little
And he's
bit.
like, no, we got to carry the 2x12 support
Oh,
up
oh
through
my.
the stair, right? Instead of
Oh
using
my.
like a 2x4. And I was like, yeah, but do we? And he was like, I was like, well, I've been watching a lot of stuff, and those guys really seem to make some nice structural things out of 2x4. And he was like, what, you're going to start now? Paying attention to conventional wisdom? Oh, that's convenient.
Yeah.
All right, so that's where I'm at. Eventually, and maybe this is something we can actually even release a little bit to our Patreons. Maybe I'll bring some of the pictures out, because actually all of our
Ooh.
pictures are secret.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my wife and I have a photo album that a select number of people
It is
are
awesome.
part of. Yeah, and we have not made it public necessarily, but maybe for our Patreon people.
Yeah. They get to see
I
the
will.
baseball bat.
I will let them in on a little bit of the.
Yeah, just a couple teaser photos.
just a couple photos for
Yeah.
them to really see what we're working with there, good, bad, and otherwise. So,
And then Chuck is commenting about Girthy entering the chat.
oh boy,
And then Dave
Chuck,
is
that's just for you. Every podcast I'm going to try and bring that in there in some way, shape, or form.
Dave is saying always room for spray foam.
There is. It is.
That's
There's-
why they need the sponsorship.
Yeah, there's
and-
always room, and it expands.
And then Amy says good morning.
Hi, honey.
Oh, good morning to Amy. Like I said, I wanted to keep our updates brief. Things are moving along swimmingly. Obviously, a busy weekend. I'm really excited to get Ryan on. Jeffrey, was there anything you wanted to add, or?
Nah, just twiddling away little things here and there.
My actually, Amy posted on Facebook a concept of puttering.
Mhm.
A meme to which my wife grabbed and tagged myself and my father into it, and I just think the meme was the definition of puttering, basically spending more or less the entirety of your day doing little chores nobody else knew needed to be done.
That was literally the definition of my weekend.
And-
I didn't even see the meme.
Speaks to me.
And it speaks to me, right? And I love that my wife pulled me into the conversation because there's nothing I love more, a task than puttering. And,
Yes.
and sometimes there's therapy in that for us and for our listeners.
Your wife is saying spray foam is a Jello of the construction world.
Mine or his?
Yours.
Oh.
So, and an important part of important piece, because obviously people have
Sorry,
listened
his
long
wife
enough.
almost never logs on, so I just
she has
Right.
the last 2 times. So
No.
once.
Once.
Listen,
I thought it was
listen.
twice.
I actually went back and I was like, "Oh, honey," because last week, many people were off.
So how did that work?
So no, it wasn't my wife. It was your wife. And I had
Oh.
attributed it, I thought, based on what Jeffrey had said, that it was my wife. So I went home and I was
Oh,
like,
boy.
"Oh, that's so cool, dear, that you were
Oh, boy.
on for 2 weeks in a row, and I really appreciate,
And shit.
what you added to the
And
conversation."
good Jennifer, she was like, it's not true.
She's like, like I'm gonna jump on again.
Okay, so I got to clarify who's saying things. I guess.
mean, no, we can go back to my wife doesn't watch this or
Yeah, that's
participate.
fine.
I
This
think that
wasn't ready.
that running joke is going to
You know what would
upstand.
fix this is we had a screen that we could read these things.
No,
Nah,
we
you don't
used
need
to.
it.
We
So-
used to.
Colleen is saying puttering. Definition of a stage manager. I concur.
Oh,
I
yes.
concur. That is definitely the definition.
Absolutely. Well, let's get transitioning here. Bring the man, the myth, soon to be the legend.
Come on over, Ryan.
I never knew a minute could feel so long.
Oh my God! I mean, if we ever needed an approved form of torture in our process,
Are we back
Don't worry, I
live
brought you
again?
back on camera before we had
I'm
mics or
sorry.
anything. So
I
Jeffrey's
apologize for
transitions.
Jeff's transition.
I love it. Thank you so much, Jeffrey, and for what you bring to our process.
I feel like that was not
That was
not a
not
compliment.
as authentic as it could have been. Oh, my bad. We were, you saw right through that. That's interesting. Go figure.
You remember that "it takes one to know one" comment you
Uh-huh,
said?
I know, right?
Oh dear.
Well, folks, those who can see, but those who are listening in, will now know that we are blessed, blessed, like hashtag blessed, with all of the beef at this end of the
No,
podcast
it's not
table.
that bad. You
All the
guys
good
are
looks,
over
too.
dramatic.
All of the good looks, too.
Yeah, all the makeup required. I'm lucky. Brush what hair I have left.
Oh,
Put my
goodness.
hat over it.
That's right. That's right.
Just to catch up to, Rob is asking who picked the wonderful music this time.
Always
Jeff.
Jeff.
Always,
That's
a cra-
always Jeff.
always our crazy producer. I don't know.
Apologize.
And then Chuck is saying, "Here's to you, cool green Jeep guy."
Hey, thanks very much.
Yeah, cheers to the cool green Jeep guy. The green Jeep that arguably is taking by storm all of the
it has its own little
Following.
aura.
little following
Yes.
and all of the vintage market. Certainly the topless Jeep, right?
Yes.
People are really engaged with with what's going on and the videos that are coming out and obviously the updates on Facebook and Instagram.
Yep.
We're excited to see the Jeep coming together at this point, which I'm certain that Ryan is as well.
And Daddy Jeep is saying all green Jeep guys are cool.
Thank you.
I have a certain affinity for the green one, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That side of the table is
that
definitely
side
green.
of the table is green.
Our side of the table, not so much.
not so much.
They're just
and,
blue. They're sad for some reason.
the greens. Scott
We do
made like
we do kind of have a blue versus green thing.
we do
going
have a blue versus green thing going on.
Yeah.
See, Ryan even
Um,
chose his flannel correctly.
That's the good.
Oh,
I broke out the
wow.
good flannel for today, boys. Just so
That
you know.
is.
But it's got blue in it too.
It's got blue in it too.
That is a
we'll
it's a
forgive the
complimentary.
blue of the
You know what he
flannel.
also did? He's got the blue undershirt on as
That's
well.
right.
It
That's
makes
right.
the stripe pop out.
Yes.
Of
By
the-
design.
And I'm a big flannel guy. I'm here for the flannel.
I knew you would be excited for his flannel.
I actually I'm kind of oh god Ryan and
jelly?
I mean I am jelly. I almost wore a very complimentary flannel of that for the same reason. We
you
call
should've.
it my lingerie flannel.
oh God.
I
dun,
have certain
dun.
sexy flannels. Those
You
are my
just
inner
said those
circle.
words, people.
My wife literally said this morning. She goes, "Oh, you're breaking out the good flannel for this." I
Yeah.
was like, well, I
See?
only have one. So yeah.
I have a wardrobe of flannels.
I have flannel and then t-shirts.
And
Colleen is saying my hubby has a green TJ. Blue is better.
yeah,
That's
go,
right,
go
Colleen.
Team Blue.
And then Amy says, I feel like I know Ryan just from conversations I overhear.
Good morning, Amy.
Well, I want to come back to. I almost wanted to like reach out and like via Scott or text, and I could have reached out to you directly, be like, "Well, what are you wearing today, Ryan? Like, what are you wearing? Because maybe I'll
That's
oh, boy.
totally
maybe
that
I'll,
into the table.
I've
thing.
been waiting for this
Right?
moment for the last 2 years.
maybe
so
I'll
my
compliment
outfit,
you.
My outfit was carefully selected for this very moment.
I'm so glad I didn't. I don't want to
haven't-
steal your thunder.
I haven't used
And
a chainsaw enough to wear flannel.
I also
I
wore my
have. I
sexy
probably would
flannel.
use a chainsaw more than both of them.
That's true.
No, no, negative,
Yeah, I use a
negative
chainsaw
Red
quite a bit.
Rider.
Yeah, I use a chainsaw quite a bit.
I don't know. You know what, Jeffrey? I'm gonna give you that. You can have that. I don't need to own that. You can have it. You have used the chainsaw more than me. That's fine. I can step away from that and not have that. I almost wore the complimentary flannel,
I did
but
use
chose
a chainsaw
not
over the
to.
weekend again.
Of course you did.
Of course you did. I chose not to for your, and I'm glad I didn't. Didn't
Thank you.
steal your thunder.
I really appreciate it.
Yes. But I did want to coordinate outfits, so let's just put the thought that counts.
Yeah. He was really excited because he can't do that with me. Don't have the flannel game.
No flannel, no
I
flannel
have like 2
stronghold.
flannels, but I never use them.
Well, it was gonna be green and a little blue. You know what I mean? But I just let's be honest. I wore it on Friday of last week, or as and my flannels are always over a t-shirt and like an undershirt. So
Meh.
like I feel like I can
They're a
put
2-day shirt. Then.
They're a
You can
couple
wear it
day
up, you can
shirt.
wear it down.
But the problem is, I have a picture that's on social media that's going around, and it's
Oh.
like it's in this flannel. I was like, that's too much.
Oh,
That's
jeez.
too much
Disagree. It's
documentation.
also
Think
it's
of the
also
thought
like,
he gives you guys. It's all for
That
you guys.
is for our viewers, for our listeners, for our folks. I was like, I want to have a little different, so I went with the layered look. I have the I Speak
Yeah.
Jeep throwback shirt. I've got the red flannel, the
The
hoodie
OG
layer,
I Speak Jeep.
the OG I Speak Jeep shirt, right? So I went with the layer for everybody. Yep, these are the top. See, that's where the makeup and the flannel conversation comes
Scott
in.
just puts on the old hoodie from last week. Keeps on moving. Got welding holes in the sleeve. It's okay.
Right?
I open the closet door. I'm like, what am I going to wear today? Flannel or flannel?
There you
Yeah,
go.
that's
There
pretty
you
much
go.
how it goes in my house.
All right. So again, folks listening in, you can find all of the cool updates, arguably from start to finish, kind of chronological.
Not
You
touching
know-
that word.
It's a long one.
That's a long one.
review of the build process for Ryan's Jeep, and again, it's very cool. # not a restoration, and you'll find it on on YouTube, on our Facebook page, on Instagram, so on and so forth. And obviously, we've talked about it a bunch. It has some pieces that just people gravitate to, which is they've loved the color of it, a lot of the build aspect, and all of that. So here's our opportunity to talk about where does this start. So Ryan, I mean that's ultimately one of the conversation pieces.
How this dream began.
How did this start for you?
Well, I'm 42 years old, so I'm an 80s baby, right? So
Okay.
I grew up watching cool movies like Back to the Future and Goonies, and so you see those visions, those iconic vehicles in those programs, and you kind of grow up like loving, Back to the Future. They had the old Toyota, and you just love those iconic vehicles. And I think, I met my wife almost 12 years ago now, and right when we started dating, I was looking at a '66. And it was red and it was restored, and I drove it, and my father-in-law at the time jumped in with me, and we went over to the house, and I showed her, and she was super ecstatic about it. She was like, this thing is super cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's permission at that point.
That's planting. That's planting a seed, right? That's planting a seed. I knew what I was doing.
Yeah. All the time. Honey, what do you think about that?
All right.
Oh, well, you don't hate that,
We'll
huh?
come back around. We'll come back around. Yeah, you don't hate that idea? And so we elected ultimately not to buy that Jeep. And then,
Which was good.
Which
I
was
got to be
good.
honest with you. 66.
Yeah, 66 is a
not
cool
what-
Jeep.
Yeah.
If you're listening, folks, and if you haven't, if you're a new Jeep owner, and this is the thing,
Don't do
you're
it.
always like, I'd like an older Jeep, right?
No, you wouldn't.
Talk to us first.
Yeah, please.
Talk to us first. We will help you make wise choices.
You have to be really diehard.
You have to be me.
Yeah, you got to be an
to-
enthusiast.
to-
I'll say
to-
that own a 75 and older
Correct.
Jeep.
100%. I
Yeah.
agree. I agree wholly
Even
with
even
you.
the 76 to 79, I think Ryan really attests to this. It's got its quirks.
Yes.
It
It's
is
a badge
dynamic.
of honor. I'm, fist bump to all of us who own 75 and older.
Yep.
But if you're a new person to it,
Yep.
don't jump in there. Don't put your feet in wet there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And my buddy Scott has a 63 CJ3B.
Okay.
And so we tool around, I live in Kirtland, so we'd bum around Kirtland in his Jeep, and it was just such an unbelievable ride, just mucking
Yeah.
around. And he started talking about
As a
Jeeps.
passenger,
As
you
a
thought
pas-
it was
as
cool.
A passenger,
As
yeah.
a passenger.
As a
Again,
passenger.
I'm going to keep coming back
yeah.
and making our conversation relevant to the people
1,000%.
listening.
I've tried to
in.
drive that vehicle several times, and I have a 13 shoe, and it will not get between the gas
No.
pedal and the brake.
Hence
It
why
does
I
not-
wheel barefoot so often, folks.
Yes.
makes total sense.
Right.
But
And-
you start riding along, you start enjoying that process. You feel the wind in your hair at 33 miles an hour because it's got a little 4-cylinder,
Yep.
72 horsepower.
Yeah.
It's really
And
exhilarating.
It's
yeah.
exhilarating, right? It's fun going down hills.
Trying to brake before the traffic hits.
For sure.
You get to it. You
For
know,
sure.
steering.
Has Roscam steering, so
Yes.
we don't have power steering
No.
by traditional standards.
No.
Yeah, sure. It's got mosquito deterrent already because it smokes like crazy. Like
Yeah.
it's the ultimate Jeep.
I've driven a Jeep like that.
Yeah.
But you end up experiencing it. You love it, and we talk about this all the time. You buy a Jeep because you're buying into a journey. You're buying
Yep.
into
Yeah.
an ideology, right?
Yep.
I've got visions of going out west. I've got visions of doing some
100%.
overlanding.
It's a vessel, right?
It's
It's
a
a-
vessel. That's exactly what it is. It's about the journey. So. My buddy Scott and I again went bumming around Northeast Ohio for I don't know probably 6 months finding
Okay.
the perfect Jeep and we couldn't find it so we bought this thing.
Okay.
And now we're building it.
So
It sounds familiar to all of
we
us.
literally- it was like one crappy rainy day and we
It's
looked
the
at
best
like
time to buy a Jeep.
100%, especially when with no top. And
Yeah.
we
Test drive,
we
meh.
go like all the way to Akron, Canton to basically have lunch to look at a bunch of crap Jeeps, and we drive back, and one guy comes out of the woodwork at the we're literally pulling into Kirtland, and this guy's in Youngstown, and we're like. Yep, we're going. So we turn back around. We head down, and here's this beautiful 78 Renegade.
Turd brown.
Turd brown.
No,
I mean,
it
it
was
is
so bad.
it's so bad, so ugly. And I get in it, and I get that same feeling of
Sure.
like, that
The
wind
Jeep
in my
spoke to
hair.
you.
The Jeep spoke to me, and Scott said, "Man, I don't think so."
So that means you buy it.
So I was like, "Okay, well, I gotta have this now."
Because obviously my friend, doesn't
Oh, my
support
friend
me.
says it's not a good a Jeep, so I'm gonna buy it.
There's an important note. What year is the Jeep?
It's a 78.
And why is that important?
The 78 was specific to us because my wife was also a model.
She's
78.
a 78
yeah,
model
she's
as
78
well.
model
Yep.
as well.
So you had to tie it immediately.
And when I saw it, I
Sell
was like,
point.
78. I can sell this to my wife.
Absolutely. right.
I can do some things with this Jeep that it'll be very, very emotional. I can tie it to something that's tugging at her heartstrings. She's born in 78. We're putting some aftermarket upgrades on this one. Why not?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Some jewelry.
Some jewelry.
so of course we bought this thing at the time. As every guy is ill prepared to have a third vehicle. There's no reason why one should have one. No trailer.
Wow, wait a
Whoa,
second.
whoa,
Wait a second.
whoa.
Whoa, okay, wait a second.
In my head,
Wait a
I feel
second.
attacked.
I was going to say, pump the brakes on. Pump the brakes.
at the beginning of my Jeep ownership,
Pump the brakes.
I thought this is going to be a great investment.
Feel
right?
ashamed.
You guys have 7 cars probably each.
That's
I
No comment. Not-
I don't. I'm
keep
not.
going up.
Somebody asked me the other day because they were like, I took my car in to get an alignment, and they were like, when you told us you were bringing a vehicle, and I thought it'd been one of the many ones that we've already seen, and
You
yet
brought
this
9
is a new
vehicles in.
vehicle for you, and I thought, well, yes.
What did they call that vehicle?
The POS.
This is the Malibu.
The Nissan.
No, this is Nissan, my noble steed.
Yeah.
My free 2001 Nissan Sentra
with the trailer light.
with
Oh, yeah.
where I smashed out the tail light. So Scott cobbed in a trailer light into my driver's side, and I have a hitch. I tow off of this
As
1.9
as you would.
cylinder.
This was the one that you broke Carvana with, right?
I did. I broke Carvana with this car, but that's for another story.
We're really
folks.
detailed until we're not.
Yeah.
And then it's like, we're going to have fun now.
I want to just hammer on
It
this.
depends on the
thing.
canvas, right? Like you can't.
Correct.
You know. You
That is.
the Nissan told me it wanted a
I'm
trailer
going to
light.
commit that one
It depends on the
to
canvas.
memory. It depends on the canvas. That's going to be my excuse
Yes.
for Nissan, my noble steed.
Yes.
When people are like, wow, that thing's a real piece of blink.
yeah.
It's the canvas.
Yeah,
It depends on the canvas.
When I bought Swamp Donkey, it was brown, rusted out, and it was the canvas that I bought into. It was the idea that it
Yes.
could be an amazing Jeep. That's what it was.
yeah, that's not my idea for Nissan.
Yeah. That totally different. than your
Nissan
scenario.
will take a flogging and ask for more. That is my.
Until it
that is-
doesn't. And then we give it a Viking funeral.
Yeah.
I have had that thing broken and rebirthed so many times.
Yes, too many.
Until it stops
many.
moving forward.
So at what
Anyway.
point
Tried
did you,
several times.
did you
Yes,
realize
tried.
you were in over your head on the Swamp Donkey?
When the Jeep
Yes.
showed up to my house.
Did we
No,
have a-
no, it wasn't that bad. So, when I realized it was over my head about 3 months into owning said Swamp Donkey. So I've got this this little tiny barn out behind our house. I was out there one day trying to figure out how to wire up some lighting.
Nice.
And no blinkers would work. The common Jeep problems, grounding issues, et cetera, et cetera. And I started like peeling back the layers of the onion and
of the brown onion.
of the brown, very stinky, very brown onion.
I'm going to interrupt because,
Yeah.
first of all, I was already thinking of Shrek when you said Swamp Donkey.
That's
and
it. That's
and
exactly why I named it.
And then you said peel back the layers of the onion, and I'm like,
You see where I'm going here?
yeah.
It's a part
We're
of the story.
we're making Shrek references.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
1,000%. And I'm the donkey.
That's where we're at.
And I'm the
That's what happens when you're our age group with little kids. It just happens.
It just happens.
yeah.
So
Wait, you have to have kids to make these references?
No,
well,
you- all right,
you,
I mean-
you have kids, so you're
Yeah,
okay.
that's true. You're around
I
kids.
do.
So I'm in the barn and I'm obviously pissed off because I can't figure out why I can't. I got a blinker working, I got a brake light not working.
And boy, did we
Vice
figure that
versa.
out later why that didn't work.
So my buddy Scott says, "Hey man, not for nothing, but you're not really much of a mechanic." I was reminded very quickly, and then I started calling around, and I didn't really know about Simpson Family Jeep. I'd kind of seen them on Facebook, but I never really interacted with you guys. And I called up like one Thursday or Friday morning, and Neil answered, and he's like, "I can hear you smiling," and I'm describing this piece of crap
Sure.
with so much love and like enduring passion for it, and I was like, I hope this guy gets where I'm coming from. So when he says weirdo, he's 100%.
we get it.
100%. Like he gets
It's
it.
because
Like,
we look in the mirror and we're like,
Yeah.
hey, that guy's like us.
1,000%. Yeah. Right. Yeah. That guy's mentally unable to do this. Yeah. Like
And unstable.
unstable.
Right, we've made
1,000%.
decisions that we should not be making.
Yeah. So here I am.
It's
I
because
got
we
the-
made those decisions.
I got this Swamp Donkey. I call Neil, and I go, "Listen, man, I got this Jeep. I got rust in the bed. Can we weld it up?" And he's like, "Why don't you try to get it up here?"
Right.
So, of course, at this time, I don't have a trailer yet. I can't drive it here. It's got no lid, no doors. It's October, November.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I rent a U-Haul. We get it up here. Scott does the crawl over.
Yep.
And,
And you didn't cry.
well,
Not in front of us, at least.
not in front of you. Yeah. I think
On the drive home.
tears of sorrow. Tears of sorrow. Because now I got to tell my wife, hey, you made a terrible investment.
No. You could have said,
In your husband.
nice save.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You could have said this 78 model is not as nice as you,
That's
right?
it. That's
She's
what I
a
should have
much
said.
better
I
78
should have
model.
said.
Yes.
I just need this one to be even just a little bit like
Yeah.
you.
I didn't. I shouldn't have led with the 78 is rusty.
Stared at her,
Yeah.
questioning her life choices.
Well, yeah, 100%. So we laughed, we joked back and forth, and she's like, well, what do you want to do with this thing? And I'm like, well, I don't want to give up on it. It's got a lot of life left. The engine's strong.
Until the Jeep told you otherwise.
until we tore it out and put a 360 into it. But
Yeah.
But I called Neil. We get it up here. We talked to Scott, and we're like, okay, what do you want out of this thing? And that's kind of how our story began, right? And I think
Yep.
it's important to note I bought into the Jeep because I wanted to buy an adventure. I wanted to buy the end goal. What I didn't realize is all the passengers I'd pick up along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Look
Yeah.
at him being so professional.
Very
This is
eloquent.
why
Very
he's
eloquent.
good in sales.
We
right?
should have had him on the other podcast.
right?
But the cool part about the Jeep is the Jeep is amazing and it's beautiful and it's changing my perspective of what I want it to do every single day. The cool part about the journey has been getting to know you guys really well and knowing your passions and knowing about the 36 Ford and Amy chattering back and forth because she can hear us talking on the phone on Saturday night looking, hey, look at this Jeep.
Yeah.
Hey, look, it's the Jeep is the beginning of it, but what
Yes.
you gain and all the other things I
I
think is
always
also
said, you
the
meet
best part.
You meet the nicest people with old vehicles.
Yeah.
And you meet genuine people.
Well, I think it's because most of them are not very smart. So we all just kind of stick together. Thank God.
It's our Comic Con,
We have power in numbers.
We have
So-
safety in numbers. Yeah.
I think the issue, and I'll just kind of goes back to the other podcast that Jeffrey and I are working on. I have met and more people and made better and deeper connections through a for-profit enterprise, through this industry, through the automotive network, than I did in 10 years of nonprofit. That's not to say that I didn't have good relationships with those people. I did. But there's something about this
It's
community.
investment.
Yeah, this community, this socialization, this process that we're all going through, the journey that we're on, that
The
kind of
realization that you
unites
made a significantly huge mistake, and now you're too far in. You got to keep going.
No, it's our ability
same
to
thing.
build your
Keep
dreams.
swimming. Keep
us.
swimming.
It's the building of the dreams,
It is.
right?
It is. It is.
And I think that's what's neat is that people who have that mindset, who want something a little more than just. There is something to be said about the mindset of somebody who just wants to keep their POS, just
road.
on the road,
That's it.
so that they can go to work and support their family and then do whatever other interest there is.
Yep.
And the people who want to invest in the journey.
Yeah.
And I think there's something in there, if we're just, take it back and get serious for a moment. There's
Yep.
something in there that actually does unite us in this process.
It's the stories. It's the memories.
It
It's
is.
Everybody has we talk about all the time. Everybody has a Jeep story. Everybody has Grandpa took me out in the Jeep, or I remember seeing that one in the farm working, or
Yeah.
that kind of stuff that brings us back to that good, pure moment. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, for sure.
We're culturing that moment, that experience.
Yeah, and I have a 6-year-old, almost 7-year-old hunter, and what it's done for us is it's brought us together. It's something that we're doing together, and your guys' process. And I don't know how any other Jeep shop does it. I don't really care. I only care about what you guys are doing. You guys let me be a part of it, and I think that's
important.
Yeah, some dumb guy that's just trying to look up parts. That's one thing, but you guys
But you're
are like,
less dumb now.
But
I'm
yeah, I'm
teaching
less.
you.
I'm definitely a smidge less dumb. But I've got to be involved in a lot of it, right?
Yep.
So
As you should
I
be.
can't physically turn wrenches on it. I get to be a part of it from afar.
Sure.
40 minutes up the road, and I get to make decisions on, here's what we would think, but what do you want to do? And I'm like,
Sure.
well, I'm a moron. So let's do what you think is the best, because
Yeah.
you guys are the subject matter experts, and I rely on that for a lot of it. But make no mistake that the best part of the Jeep has been, for us, having an end goal. Right? It's a little bit therapeutic, if that makes sense. Right? Like
Yeah.
there are fragments of my life and everybody's life that I wish that I could repair, and I work every day to try to be a better dad and husband than I was yesterday.
Yep.
And I think the Jeep for me is a way for me to is an outlet for me to go, okay, well, there's this piece of broken down 78 turd, Swamp Donkey, but I love it, right? And I
Yeah.
love everything that it was, and I love everything that it's going to be. Let's put some of those pieces back together and then see what happens, right? And you kind of start reassembling, and you kind of start. For me, it's therapeutic because I get to put my brain to use other than something, rather than surfing TikTok.
Julie just chimed in and said, I can verify he is pretty dumb.
Oh
And
wow!
that's his wife, if you're listening in.
I thought we cut the
sharing-
broadcast.
Sharing in the
whoops,
conversation.
I forgot.
But
Man, Julie, I didn't hear that bus coming.
I didn't see
I
it
think
either.
that idea of
she was working.
the build process, right? The build process, being able to have this big ideal goal, and then the little parts and pieces that help us take those stepping stones towards that big goal. I think that's an important part of what brings us together as auto enthusiasts, right? I know that I want my Jeep to look this certain way. If I'm a newbie and I know I just want 35s on it, I know that that's my goal. But how do I do that? Just one thing, right?
Yeah, how do I actually put them on?
Yeah.
How do I actually?
What do you need in order to put 35s on? Nobody
actualize
knows
that?
Nobody knows gearing and axles are for a Jeep novice.
Well, and I think that's one of the things you touched upon with us unique, and that's why ultimately what kind of pushed us to do the podcast was the idea that we operate with a heightened level of transparency.
Mm-hmm.
I always used to say 15, 20 years ago, if I can just get in front of a crowd of people and share my passion for the off-road industry, for auto enthusiasts, that other people go, hey, you know what? It doesn't have to be. I don't have to go to Jim Bob's garage and him tell me, well, it's an old Jeep and it's supposed to be a piece of crap, and this is as
It's a
good as
Jeep
it's going to
thing.
get. Yeah, it's a
It's,
Jeep
it's
thing.
the part of the experience.
People I'll post all the time. Well, my Jeep was shaking my teeth out, or it burnt down. Well, that's what Jeeps do. And I'm thinking, no. If that happened to you or is happening to you, you're just finding the wrong information out there. You know,
Or you didn't repair it good
or
enough.
it wasn't repaired correctly,
Or the last guy screwed it up.
Or absolutely, and
Yeah.
you're unfamiliar with the vehicle or the application enough to go, hey, this should be done differently, or I could do this differently.
Yeah, I think there's a stigma around mechanics in general. Like not all mechanics are bad mechanics. I've got friends that are mechanics, but I know guys that I trust with my personal vehicle. There's a stigma that goes around like, the guy's just trying to screw me over, right? The guy.
Unfortunately, and that is part of
it happens.
every day we have to work to improve ourselves to overcome that stigma that
It
is
is.
associated with the industry as a whole.
Yep.
What I love though is that all you have to do is get the customer come in, see the shop, talk to us, and that immediately goes away because that's just not
I
us.
think you naturally have a defense mechanism up against it. And when I met you guys, and literally when you talk about a crawl over, Scott's physically crawling over, like he's literally Spider-Man, right?
Yeah.
And it's thorough, it's robust, it's a review in its entirety of the Jeep, and then you go, wow, that's way more than I anticipated as
Sure.
an outcome. Like here's what
Here's what
here's
it is.
everything that's wrong, right?
Yeah.
And it looks like wallpaper because it's 49 items or something like that.
Right.
But it's one of those things where your guard goes down because you make a connection with the team that's going to be working on your stuff,
Sure.
and you call in on every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and try to get an update on what that Jeep looks like. You start to naturally understand who those folks are and who's working on your Jeep and who's touching stuff, and that to me has been. The
Sure.
Jeep in its finished state is going to be phenomenal.
Well, let's talk about your journey on this.
Yeah.
Paint the story. What's your journey been like as a customer, as an enthusiast? All of
Expensive.
that? That's fair.
To sum everything up, it's been expensive. My journey was, Scott says it all the time. The Jeep will tell you what it needs. And,
Yep.
and it sounds almost cliche, and it really kind of is, but it really is legitimate. When we started tearing this thing off, we knew right away, you got to have to buy a new body.
Yeah.
So I had to find a way to transparently deliver that news to my wife. Don't worry, this is going to turn out great, right?
Yeah.
And so we kind of started working in reverse. We kind of said, well, we need a body. Let's start there. So you're going to need a paint job, and we got
Yeah.
a guy up the road and Jerry, and we started working through the body, got that on order. And then it kind of just snowballed from there, right?
Yeah. Well, the frame told us it needed love too.
The frame needed a little kiss and a
It
smooch.
is the original frame, though. For
Yes.
people listening in,
Yeah.
if you're unfamiliar, the piece that I feel like we jumped, right? And it's interesting to hear. It's a great question by Jeffrey, and interesting to hear your response. Because for me, at an ownership and a project management level, it's interesting to hear where you jump into the conversation, right? Because it does not address one of the first things that I always try to pull out of our customer base is what is your goal,
Oh, yeah.
right? And so it's interesting.
I was just
on the
running.
consumer experience.
I just want to drive a sweet Jeep. How do we get there?
But see, that's interesting because for you, that you might have that mindset, but then when you communicate it to folks, and each
Yeah.
person communicates their goal differently to us, and then our job is to kind of read you as a consumer,
Sure.
and go, okay, where does this guy's goal come in,
What
right?
does he want
So
to do with the Jeep?
What does he actually want to do to what is actually out there, what's available, and what can we do with it? So oftentimes we get somebody who comes in with a vintage vehicle, and they're like, hey, I want to drive it on Sunday. I want it to be super reliable. I want to hit the key. I want to be able to get into it and confidently and safely take my family to get ice cream. If I want to bump through the back roads, an hour and a half away,
Yep.
I want to know that the Jeep is going to do that for me.
Sure.
Yep.
Um,
And then we
So-
just kind of build the picture from there.
well, and the issue is there's a lot of people who that maybe is not their priority,
at
right?
first, especially.
Or they go, hey, you know what? Or that is their priority, but then they go, hey, you know what? Actually, I'm good with, hokey wiring and a carburetor that doesn't work very well.
Sure.
Because, it's not that much of a priority for me.
Yeah.
And then we have customers who say, no, I want to be able to drive this thing back and forth to Florida. Okay, right? Those are two different individuals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think to your point, I think my path has changed a little bit because I think initially when we were building this thing, we're like, well, I want to be able to just rip it off road.
Sure.
And I think now, as we've gone through the process of hashtag not a
Off the
restoration,
rails.
now it's been a little bit more, well, I want a lady in the street but a freak in the bed kind of thing, right? I want it to be able to hold up on it. I want to hold up on the trail, but I also want to be able to take it to the Dayton Jeep Show, right?
Sure.
Like it's a best of both worlds, right? We've got some wide track axles there. We've re-geared it to 410.
Yep.
We're ready to rock and roll. It can handle the off-road.
Yeah.
But I kind of want it to drive to get ice cream.
And Julie's chiming in saying kind of the same thing. She says, I think Ryan's vision has evolved as he learned from you guys what was possible, much to my dismay.
Operating with transparency.
Can we block people out of curiosity?
Yeah, there's
Otherwise,
a standard thing that we can use to block people.
I probably would have already been blocked by now.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's important to note that. Like I never, when I got the Jeep, I was just going to be like this 78 beat up. We're going to rip it through the woods, and that's going to be it. And then when we started dissecting, like, what's wrong with it? Well, we're putting a new body on it. Well, we're going to put,
Sure.
Needs a 360. Well, this is a built 360 with an RV cam, and I got one sitting on the shelf, oddly enough. Weird. You know what it needs? It needs fuel injection.
Not that weird for Scott,
Right?
right?
That's really not for Scott.
Yeah.
But
Gotta have a 360 in the wings at all times.
I think part of my favorite storyline is when you're like, hey, there's that rusty piece there. What are you going to do about that? And Scott's response is, well, for a restoration, we would take care of that.
That's when it turned the corner for me.
This is not a restoration. this is a resto mod. This is a cleanup job.
This is a rebirth.
This is a cleanup job.
That to me, I was going to bring that up is we were looking at it. We got the new body on. We hadn't touched the frame. We actually were talking about leaving it alone at that time. And I had fit, it comes with some holes in the body, but not a lot.
Right.
Some
Not
of them
enough,
aren't,
right?
Some of
Yeah.
them are not in the right spot.
For sure.
So we're fitting the seat bases, and I didn't have the seats in there yet. And you came over to see it, and you're looking at them, and they're like, man, these are awful rusty, and this has got a really nice bed-linered floor in it now. Are we going to clean those up? Ryan asked.
How much are new ones of those?
I was like, yeah, can I buy new of those? I was like, not really. I was like, well, we would clean those up for a restoration and blast them and paint them. And he's like, well, don't tell Julie.
Send it.
Send
I never
it.
said that part.
But I think it's a restoration now. It's like, okay, the gloves are off.
Yeah, at some point in time, the Jeep turned from just a trail donkey to a, hey, let's make it
I think
it
it had
look
to
pretty
do
well
with
read
the
it.
pretty green paint was part of it, too.
Yeah, I found that 77 Loden green, and it was specific for the period, and I was like, all right, we're going all in
Right.
now.
Yeah.
and
That's when I made the decision to go all in.
folks who are listening who might not be familiar with some of the AV media we've done, the Loden green, right? Oftentimes when we post a picture of it, we get a comment specifically about the green.
Always.
And that is what it is. It's called Loden green.
Yep.
It is appropriate to the era.
It is.
Yep. It was a factory option.
It
77 Golden Eagle, I think.
And yet, it is unusual enough that it's unique enough that it commands attention.
I've literally had no one speak up that has come into the shop has not complimented the color. Everyone loves the color.
Yeah,
Everybody.
complete transparency. When the body got painted over at the shop, my son, my wife, and I walked over on a Saturday, walked into Jerry's shop, and cried like a baby.
Don't blame me a bit.
No doubt about it.
Right?
I saw it, and
Secure men wear flannel and cry.
yep, my son looked at me and was like, Dad, are you okay? I was like, oh, got something in my eye. One of those deals.
Right.
Yeah,
And
totally.
it's fun to both play with that concept, but it's
Yeah.
also cool to see that journey actually materialize. For what we do, we hear a lot of people tell us their dreams. Frequently, when we're out at a show, they're going to do this, they're going to do this. If people are familiar enough with Scott and I, we used to go picking to a lot of people's different properties. We found ourselves.
we would
in some-
hear the dream they
we would
had.
hear the dream they had that they never actually got to fulfill.
Yeah.
So now we're on a little bit of a different path where we get to fulfill other people's
Build
dreams.
someone's dream.
So, with that said, and for the sake of brevity to the podcast, because we could probably do this all day long.
For sure.
Easy.
One of the questions that I often field in those ownership level conversations, which I think people take for granted a little bit because it crosses over. It goes, well, it must be nice to do that, right? And it kind of comes over to those dreams that people never fulfilled, that Scott and I have encountered. Slightly un-Jeep related, in a brief as possible, what do you do for a living?
What do I do for a living? So, I am a vice president of sales for an electrical and electronics distribution company.
Mm-hmm.
So I run a $150 million electrical distribution business in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware.
Right.
Been with that org
But
for
with
like,
that said, you don't have 150 million.
oh God,
do you
no.
see what I'm saying? So,
No.
and I want that to be really,
you're
really
not
on
owner.
the table.
You're working. For
Yeah.
Your
for
work
sure.
for, right?
For sure.
And so what's really valuable, starting many, many years ago, and we have, we used to call it the HIPAA law of customers. We don't really compare customers or bring other customers' business as far as their personal aspects into conversation. Illicitly, right?
Yep,
so obviously
sure.
you put yourself out there, you can do whatever.
Yep.
But for years with these big projects, we have this beautiful, spectacular XJ out there. We have this really gnarly Hemi TJ down in Florida. We have all of these Jeeps. I can kind of go on and on. We had this 4-door stretched YJ that we did the 4-wheel drive conversion on, and blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
I always used to say to people, the issue is not that Ryan has,
he's
just
not a trust fund baby.
he's not,
No.
He's not just frivolously,
Sure.
right? It's the priorities. People, people are like, well, it must be nice. I wish I had that kind of money. And I'm thinking, these people the thing is, like, they don't actually have that money. They're just prioritizing and making this an aspect of their life. They've made decisions. You bought a piece of junk. You didn't go out and buy an $80,000 392
Hurts a
JL.
little.
You did. One of our customers went out and bought a clean XJ to start long before XJs were $1 bajillion. He could have gone out and bought a brand new JK, back in 14. He didn't. He went and bought a clean XJ to start his build journey. One of these other guys, he bought the Jeep new in 2001, and it wasn't until 15, 18 years later,
After 200,000 miles.
200,000 miles, that he said, I'm going to invest large sums of money and make this happen.
Great idea.
So the big thing is, people who are listening and sharing, I want to make sure people understand that this is not like, oh, hey, there's just, we got pro athlete or trust fund baby money that we're doing this stuff for.
Yeah.
This is the nitty gritty of going, hey,
average Joe.
Yeah, this is no vacations in the summertime.
correct.
This is
like,
we had a kitchen remodel that we wanted to get done a couple of years ago that we pushed off. We wanted to, you find ways to make it work. I think our project has been a 2-year project, so it's a little easier to write.
Let's not say that out loud, but it makes me feel some type of way.
I bought the Jeep 2 years ago. You haven't had it for 2 years.
No.
But,
Right.
but my journey's been 2 years old. But
What
I think
I love though is the people that know that process, that have seen cars sit for 5-10 years
Right.
in a
That's
state.
the issue that I always take into contention as an ownership management level, because Scott has a previous experience. A car sat at a different business for 6 years before it ever, and it wasn't half the restoration
No.
that's happening here.
No, I actually say that with pride when people come in
Retrofit.
like, "How long has it been here?" I said, "A little over a year," and look at it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's one of our things that I take pride in, is that typically we can do these pretty expeditiously. The issue is obviously when there's parts changes and
the last year's supply
chain
chain has been a
issue
nightmare.
and all of that kind of stuff, is very challenging.
Well, and now Julie's saying Jeep is greater than new kitchen equals sad wife, happy husband. LOL.
Happy husband, happy life.
We finally did get the kitchen done, so she's at least
Yay!
moderately.
Oh,
happy.
there we go.
kitchen.
All right,
but it's been a 2-year journey, so it's not like I'm not writing a check for a finished product that I don't go in, buy the Jeep and come home.
Sure.
It's been small doses of
correct.
death by 1,000 needles instead of just
That's
one
what I always say
large.
is you have to look at what you want, look at what the price tag of that is, and then decide, can I write a check for that, and then rebuild it because it's not the way I want it.
That's right.
Or
right.
do I slowly get there? And
Yeah.
I may spend more in the process.
Yep.
But now it's custom to me, and I've learned
It's my decisions.
it's my decisions.
Yep.
And in the end, I do have that. That's my
I've
car
been
in
part
a
of
nutshell.
that journey.
Yeah.
Right. There are people who can go out and strike that check, and they're
Yeah.
happy enough, and
For
that
sure.
God
vehicle
bless
will
them.
fill a need for a year or two, and then they'll take it to the next Barrett Jackson and let it
Yeah,
rip.
that's the
And
crazy
okay.
part.
Yeah.
Is those people, they're not all in like we are.
Yeah.
Well-
this is ultimately going to be for my son Hunter.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because he's a hell of a lot smaller than I am.
At the moment.
Yeah, he'll fit in there better than I can right now.
Nice.
The other thing I wanted to bring up is that Julie's very supportive of you in this whole
Oh,
process,
1,000%.
and as part of that, what did she get you for your birthday?
It's I think it was a Christmas or my birthday.
Was it Chris? I thought it was your birthday.
I think it was.
Was it last year my birthday?
I think it was your birthday.
I think it was Christmas last year.
Maybe-
Anyways,
maybe it was Christmas
yeah,
last year. I don't know.
Yeah,
Special
For guys,
occasion.
the dates kind of blend
Special
together.
occasion.
For
Yeah.
a special,
Special
occasion.
occasion.
There you go.
Yeah, so I woke up to a beautifully restored model CJ5 in my paint code, dressed up just like my Jeep is going to look like, which sits in
Julie
the
says
cab.
it's your birthday.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
Thanks, Julie. But it's a model. It's verbatim my exact build. It sits in a glass cabinet in my desk in my office under lights. It's got a little light. It's amazing. It's the end goal.
And to her credit, let's say that make sure people understand that this was her idea.
100%.
She reached out on the down low to us.
Yep.
Worked with Scott and got a model like a
Diecast.
124,
116?
It's 124-ish.
I think it was 124-ish.
But what was great about her is she had certain expectations, and like I guess everything I do,
I need to Scott it.
I asked Scott it a little bit, and so I found her the model.
He took apart the model too.
Yes.
It was literally yellow with black seats. I
Yep.
think when
I think
we
it was a
got
Charlie's Angels Jeep actually.
Yeah, and it was.
Makes sense.
We had to actually go to an 81 because it had the other model had short buckets, and I wanted the tall backs like what you have. So I actually was like, here's the model, buy it. She shipped it to me. I took it completely apart, a million pieces. We took the body over and had Jerry paint it with the exact color that
Should have
is
brought it
yours.
actually.
Nah, that's all right.
That's all right.
Your wife did confirm it was a Charlie's Angel model.
Yep. And
Hey, Charlie's Angel.
put it all back together. And the part I loved the most was interacting with Julie about this project. And I was sending her updates like I send you updates.
Yeah.
And how
We were building 2 Jeeps.
fun she had doing this. To me, that just speaks that's my love language.
Yeah.
Is doing that kind of stuff. And I built a Jeep for my wife. That's how I show her love and
Yeah.
appreciation. So I could see her doing this for you, and I was like, man, this is right here, man.
She
Scotch feels.
she
Right?
probably hasn't been always on our vision probably didn't align from the beginning, but she's always been on board with it.
Yes.
Like she looked at it and she's like, "Hey, listen, are you sure?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm crazy." Let's do it."
Oh yeah.
But she's always been in the back going, "Hey,
You can do this.
I'm your biggest cheerleader.
I'm your biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
I'm not a Jeep girl.
I think this is stupid, but I'm still your biggest cheerleader.
But I love you to
100%.
death, and I
Yeah.
want you to.
That's my wife.
If you want this, I want you to want this, and I want it
100%.
for you.
That is a good relationship in a nutshell.
Yeah,
in my
I
opinion.
love it.
Well, and she's saying all the props in the world, and that it meant a lot that she knew that we would help her along the
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
100%. But that was
She said
just-
we can't do another vehicle. She said we can only do Jeeps because I only trust the Simpson boys.
That's funny.
She signed off.
I
for the
love
next
that
one already.
responsibility. I love that bar has been set, and it's obviously our objective to maintain it.
For
you know?
sure.
I think this is a great opportunity. Again, we could do this all day
Yep.
long, but this is a great high note, good feel-good part to end on. Was there anything, and don't feel like you need to pomp and circumstance anything, was there anything you felt you wanted to make sure you addressed?
Not at all.
Okay, fantastic.
Not
That
at
is
all.
fine. We're going to go
Brevity.
ahead and take a quick break. We'll be right back with hashtag not sponsored.
And now it's time for our product spotlight. Hashtag not sponsored. Spotlight. Hashtag not sponsored.
So today in our hashtag not sponsored, I have a broken piece of plastic in my hands.
So pretty underwhelming by initial conceptualization, right?
Yep.
So when we briefly talked about like what are we going to do, hashtag not sponsored,
Hold this up so
And,
the camera can actually see the two pieces
Scott
for those
was
watching.
presented this as kind of what we would be talking about. I was like, dude, that's not engaging. And then I thought, you know what? No, because this is a concept. I think it's applicable to Ryan's Jeep.
This
Right?
is literally for his Jeep.
Okay.
What a piece of crap.
B, our vintage enthusiasts out there are going to want
Constantly.
to know about this, and we
Constantly.
constantly are addressing this.
Yep.
and C, all those JKJL customers who are like, I'd like an
It'd
old.
be quaint.
I would like the nostalgia of owning an
Yes.
old vehicle would be nice.
But would you?
So this is an important piece, and finally, it does address our attention to detail. So
Yes.
have at it.
So this is a crown piece that goes between the dashboard and the steering column. Actually goes around it.
Well, it's a trim piece.
It's a trim piece.
made by Crown,
Made by Crown.
and
Or-
Onyx,
or
and a couple other
Yeah.
companies.
It's made by someone, sold by
It's
Crown.
a trim. It's a plastic bezel. Those who can't see it,
Yeah.
they're listening and enjoying us. It is the plastic bezel that basically fills the void,
Yep.
the access void that allows you to put your steering column through
the dashboard.
through the dash, right?
Because the dash goes completely around the column. You have to literally put the dash over or the column through.
So all of you JL customers who have that nice little access panel, the
Oh, yeah.
plastic just kind of pops down, and
Yep.
you can tittle away and
An
run
engineer
your
spent way too much time figuring out how to make that serviceable.
yeah. This
is
is
what we
like,
got.
this is gonna suck,
Yeah.
and you're just gonna deal with it.
So you buy your new piece and you look at it, and really the fit and finish of this is pretty nice. The holes line up. It's respectable. The difference is the type of material they choose. And we don't know what dark, dingy, questionable making pieces AMC chose to do. this.
See, I don't. It was
Anyway.
like a romance novel that started.
But I will tell you from
And
experience.
then it got into the terms we didn't understand because of Scott Dictionary things.
The original,
Scott.
you can the original you can flexi around a little bit, and you can open, because you imagine you got this little slot on the bottom that's you gotta get around a steering column, and the original will let you do that.
You're talking about it was more pliable.
It's more pliable.
And your reference about AMC was that they were using a potential,
Well,
like
there's a
maybe
certain picture.
chemically enriched product
Yes.
that would
Some
not
nicotine in
be
there.
Prop 65 friendly.
Plutonium.
Okay, I'm following now.
Yeah. So you get this new piece, and I'm sure there's somebody out there that's throwing this in the garbage at this point and going, I tried to put this on my column and it snapped in half. Which
So
is exactly
my question
what happened.
is, the piece that you're handling here should not be two pieces
Should not
for
be
our
two
viewers.
pieces.
Oh, it shouldn't be.
There
No.
you go. Right, I needed that
It was one
for
piece.
everybody paying attention.
Hey Ryan,
This
before
should
you
be-
go, I got an invoice for you.
No, make it work. I'm actually going to make this work, but
Let me ask you this, Scott. Why didn't you do your typical romancing of the parts and heat it up and
so
he's
I
going
did.
to.
Oh,
I actually warmed this up so they would be more pliable.
Oh.
he applied too much heat. Too
I
much
was going to
passion.
say.
No, it's not
It's-
melted. No melty. And
Not
it's
enough
just,
Vaseline.
it is just not. It does not work.
Scott has a thing for Vaseline.
Stop it.
I watched the podcast.
Ryan's like, I know.
No.
So, but at this point in the game,
He's not offered me any. That's
Hashtag jealous.
so at this point you have to make a choice. You have to be like, well, I'm either going to use my original if I have it,
right.
or how am I going to make this work? Now the good part is it's a clean break. I actually think I can put this on, butt up the pieces. It'll be fine.
It looks like it's supposed to look that way,
I've
honestly.
absolutely done this before.
Yes. But what people need to know is, it's things you buy for CJs don't just bolt on the Jeep. They don't just fit. And I say this with kind of tongue in cheek, but you have to be happy it exists.
Yep.
Correct.
That someone has a mold and is popping these things out.
This is what we got.
And they're not $110 a piece.
Right.
But it does suck when you buy that piece and it snaps in half.
And I think it's good. It's an important reminder, though,
Yes.
because in our industry, we do have these reproduction parts available to us.
Yep.
And we're fortunate because not all the industries
Coming
have
from
that.
AMC cars, you're just glad to find something that sort of exists. I one time in my life crawled up into a car that was literally rusting in 3 pieces, into the back window, took a piece of trim off that had pits all the way through it, took it home, body worked that sucker, painted it, and put it in my Gremlin because it does not exist at all, period.
Well, and the benefit of this piece for those that are listening and can't actually see it, the brake in this situation is
It's
so
clean.
clean
Yes.
that
Right
it
down the middle.
looks like it was manufactured that
And
way.
honestly, it just makes my life easier because now it goes around the column and puts it back on.
Yeah.
I think in the future, maybe we should consider just cutting that in advance.
Only problem is then you have the kerf
Multi-tool.
of the cut, and
Yeah.
now we have
Oh,
a gap.
yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
And like I said, I've actually used exactly this in previous CJ jobs. I just factually know.
Yeah,
because
they snap all the time.
They do. They snap all the time. The replacement, reproduction piece. The first ones were more malleable, and you could open it
literally,
up and slip it over.
Slip it up behind the head and sort of thing.
Slip it over the steering column.
Yeah.
And again, this is going to be best case scenario for what we have available to us.
Yep.
So we never want to seem like we're looking a gift horse in the mouth of
Nope.
our industry partners and manufacturers. We do want better,
Yes.
right? We always want better.
And that's another thing. I'm going to speak out to that old grumpy guy throwing this in the trash. You have to let the company know what problems and stuff because they can change the plastic they make this out of, but they do not know they need to unless you tell them. And you don't need to be like rah, 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 rah. That's not fixing nothing. You need to send an email and say, hey, I had this problem, this is an idea, and they will take those and
will often
change.
address that. I mean, their livelihood is making these reproduction pieces when it comes to Crown and Onyx.
Yep.
And I just think that that's really unique for our hashtag not sponsored. It's a product that honestly is not the best.
Yeah, it needs a little love.
We're thankful for it, and it is an attention to detail issue that oftentimes people will look over. They won't pay attention to it until it's not there, and then you have this gaping hole in your dashboard.
100%.
Pretty interesting piece. Folks, you can see this piece in action. It's going to be, this Jeep is going to be at the Dayton Off-Road Expo at the end of February.
Yep.
And a big,
Under pressure.
and a big shout out to the event organizers there. We actually have a preferred viewing location.
I don't think you can miss this Jeep when you get there.
You won't be able to miss it. We'll just lay that one on you. They're being very, very kind to us in extending us that, kind of
Prime
that
real
opportunity,
estate.
that prime real estate. So that event is going to be February 25 and 26. It's a very cost-effective show. They always try to keep it low for the families to attend. They know that it's winter in the Midwest, and so you want to get out of the house and do something off-road, inspired. It's in Dayton, Ohio, so it's just up north of Cincinnati a little bit. You're going to get a bunch of people coming up out of Kentucky, southern Ohio. There's going to be people coming in from Indiana, Illinois. You even get some people who push down from Michigan, then obviously from western Pennsylvania, western New York, and Ohio, northeastern Ohio.
Have David get the for sale sign ready.
No.
So that's fine. That's fine. Roll that money in. Let's plow it into another build. And so you're going to want to look for this Jeep. We'll be at that show. It'll be a nice experience. We as a group should be there as specific facilitators. We will be there on Sunday of the event, but the Jeep will be there for the duration.
Yeah, I'll be there the whole time probably too.
Yep.
Did you get your hotel room?
Not yet.
So there are hotel rooms on site.
Perfect.
It's a really, it is a really neat. I can't encourage people enough to prioritize this show if you are an off-road enthusiast. It's a really good time. There's a bar restaurant on site. You're kind of out in the middle of nowhere in your immediate location, but you're only 15 minutes from stores and downtown areas
There's a
of
lot
other
to
stuff.
see in that area too.
And there is stuff to do and stuff to see, and then you can literally walk from your hotel down into the show, walk around for a few hours. If it gets too busy early afternoon, go up to the hotel, take a nap, go back down, so on and so forth.
Makes it really friendly with kids.
Yes,
Awesome.
No doubt. So, if you're listening in, I really appreciate your participation. You have made this Jeep podcast one of the fastest growing automotive and Jeep and off-road podcasts on the internets. We appreciate that support. It was episode 60. We're thankful that Ryan was here with us, owner of #NotARestoration. You can find all of those goodies online. If you would, please consider, giving us a review, 5 stars. Go over to the YouTube I Speak Jeep podcast where we have all these catalog. Like and subscribe there. And, be part of the conversation. Be part of our family. And, of course, you can always join us 1019 live on Facebook. Jeffrey, what else do we have for our folks?
So the newest thing is Patreon. We actually have a Patreon account now. Go to Patreon, search I Speak Jeep. you'll find our page with 3 different subscription tiers. Definitely want to check that out for some exclusive content. We have a Discord set up, so you have a community of Jeepers that you can interact with. And our hosts, Neil and Scott, will be in and out of that Discord chat room as well, so that you can even talk with them a little bit, ask them questions directly.
Absolutely, and there'll be some fun pictures. Like I said, I think I'm going to do some. I'm going to let some of those folks in on the house pictures that we've been talking about for a while, since that is not publicly consumed.
And Chuck is saying, great show today. Beautiful Jeep, Ryan. Congrats.
Thanks, Chuck. Appreciate it.
No doubt. Folks, make sure you prioritize. Join us next Monday, 10:19 a.m. live on Facebook, or, jump on that their favorite podcast streaming site. There is oftentimes little additional bloopers and additional content available for you. You can download those, listen to us in your ear holes on your favorite commute, or, on the airplane, or, at work when you're not paying attention to that next task you're supposed to be doing. So, folks, we had a great time with you. Make sure you join us again next week. Until then, Jeep on.
Jeep on.
Jeep on.
Jeep on.